Happy Rom-Com Month, everybody. We are doing 28 Days of Love. Today is day 26. I am your host, Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut. It's another way to say Carpe Diem. That comes from this weird thing that happened in college. I left an actual donut on a table, but it became an object lesson for me in what it looks like to leave an opportunity behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut. The reason I'm saying this is that sometimes I'll issue myself a take the donut challenge. If there's something I want to go after, something I want to do, I'll make it official. I'll make videos about it. I'll hold myself accountable to it in that way. And this time I'm actually opening up this challenge to anybody who wants to join. So here we are. It's 28 Days of Love, 28 Days of Rom-Coms. And today, day 26, we're going to talk about Pretty in Pink. And specifically, we're going to talk about 10 things we love about the movie Pretty in Pink. And I'm not doing it alone. I have a very special guest today, Mandy Foreman, who you may know from as an actress from Felicity, Alias, Star Trek, so many credits to her name. Welcome.
Thanks. I have one question about, sorry, my stomach just growled. I'm hungry. I have one question about the Take the Donut that I don't know. Like, I will tell you that like on set, because nobody wants to eat a whole donut because you look like you're trying to fit in your wardrobe and all that. So I have cut like a piece of it. Do you ever take a piece of the donut and just leave the rest? Or is that not
Sure.
even part of the challenge?
Why not? I mean, if that's how you want to consume your donut, go for it. I think the idea of leaving it entirely behind if you wanted it is really the thing I'm trying to avoid. So, yeah,
Right.
if it's all about taking a piece,
Right.
that works. Plus,
Okay.
and if you want a little piece of a bunch of ones, that's fine too.
That's a
Anything
good one.
goes. Yeah.
Okay. I like
Yeah,
it.
I like the clarifying questions. This is good. This is good stuff. Yeah, first of all, Mandy, tell us a little bit about yourself and also what your background with this film is, which may
Right.
be of interest to folks.
Yeah, I don't have a background with this film. I never saw it, which is weird because I feel like I did. Oh, yeah. I mean, I never saw it. I love the theme song, but the theme song has nothing to do. If you know the actual song and you listen to the lyrics, it's not like this movie at all. It's very dark. It's about like this girl that's kind of passed around by a bunch of guys and she wants them to like her, but they don't respect her and they just kind of make fun of her. So it's kind of a sad, dark song, which has nothing to do with the movie. Um, Other than that, like I really don't. I was born and raised in LA, so I recognize a lot of the locations. I recognize like the way the art direction is done in the different apartments and homes is very accurate. And I remember being in apartments like the Annie Potts apartment, thinking, God, I want my apartment to look like this someday. Like, it just like the cool girls with, like eclectic, weird stuff. And uh, other than that, I don't have a background with the movie.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be really exciting to have this conversation because I've seen it, but it had been a while. This is one of the films on the list. I was like, I know I've seen this. This is the one with Ducky. This is the one I want to cover. Um, and for you to also like, we're definitely approaching this one with adult eyes.
Yeah.
So for whatever that's worth, folks, just be aware of that up front. But this is going to be a fun conversation where we get to talk about fun things about this movie. Um, and the format of this is a top 10 list, 10 things we love about this film. I'll take the even numbers, Mandy will take the odd numbers. But just to reset this, so this is Pretty in Pink from 1986. It was directed by Howard Deutsch and written by John Hughes. Stars Molly Ringwald as Andy, Jon Cryer as Ducky, James Spader as Steph, Andrew McCarthy as Blaine, Harry Dean Stanton as Jack, Annie Potts as Iona. Um, and definitely like the John Hughes Molly Ringwald combination is something that is familiar from that time. So this will be a fun one to get into. But I wanted to start off the top 10 list with number 10, and we can talk about small details, big things. A lot of my things are like sort of bigger character traits. But
Mhm.
I think the first thing I wanted to address is a smaller detail. Iona has a very aggressive way of dealing with thieves at her shop. At Tracks. I loved the move of like she's stapling records to the ceiling and then she just shoots a staple at some kid.
Uh-huh.
Which isn't really how staplers work, but
Oh, staple gun. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, you
oh,
can.
is it?
Oh yeah, have you ever used, she's got a staple gun, right? So yeah,
I guess
they're
she
pretty,
does.
you could really shoot a staple with those.
How about
And you've
that?
never used a staple gun? Oh yeah, like the big ones like she was using, they're
Well,
really
not
powerful.
as a weapon, I haven't. So
You
this
can
is,
use it.
you can get distance with this then.
Yeah, you can.
All right, I like her even more. Um, she's
Yeah.
so interesting. They give her all these quirks and interesting details around her character, and like she just doesn't suffer fools.
Mhm.
And she'll go as far as this. I just
Yeah.
really enjoy this character, but specifically that moment.
Yeah. I loved her too. I loved her too. I loved her fashion was so on point. I actually I really loved the wardrobe in this whole movie. The
Did you want to
wardrobe.
bring that in for number 9?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Are we on number
Number
9?
9. Yeah, we can go wherever we want in this conversation, but it felt like you had something really substantial here, so I want to
I
give
just
it some
really loved
space.
all of the wardrobe. I thought it was really having, I was alive at the time, and I definitely saw these people walking around, specifically like the Annie Potts character was so, I mean, I grew up in LA and I was in LA at that time. And so whoever did the wardrobe is definitely skewing towards like an LA kind of thing. I don't know if that kind of stuff happened in Chicago. I think it was supposed to be in Chicago, but because most of John Hughes movies are set in Chicago. He was kind of specific about that, but it's definitely not shot in Chicago. So the wardrobe was done by Marilyn Vance, who's
Hmm.
still alive, and she did like Pretty Woman. These are the same kind of era. Pretty Woman. She did Ferris Bueller. She's done a ton of stuff. And I thought she did a great job, like even the wigs that Annie Potts wore, at certain times, and just her like throwback to the 50s and which was like a thing at that time. And I loved that Steph is always in a suit, like gross, like couldn't be douchier. Like he goes to school in a suit. Like he's so
And like
gross.
usually a little too big, like
Yeah, well, of course.
oversized.
With
Yeah.
pleated pants, which is also like a thing,
Yeah.
at the time. But the fact that he wears like literally a jacket and pants and ugh, and like smokes in the hallway. What? In high school, he's just smoking a cigarette. He's just so douchey, and it's really well done. I thought Ducky's clothes were on point as well. His shoes, his dirty, scuffed up white shoes that he wore, his hat, all of his like his army jacket. They just did a great job. I thought, Andy's clothes, Molly Ringwald's were also really on point, like this sort of the lace mixed with like it was just very 80s, very of that time with like our buttoned up collar with like the necklaces and just it was so well done because I you don't see that in a lot of movies from the time. They were sort of more basic, like neon and this was very, very specific and I thought it was great.
And it really gave you a lot of information about each character. Like the fact, like for Iona, the fact that she looks completely different every time. Like
Yeah.
that says a lot about her interests in life. Like she wants to be able to try on different things, and maybe that brings out different aspects of her, and maybe she wants that. Like, because I remember really clocking the hairdo that we see her with, like that sort of like spiky fanning out that she
Yeah,
has.
yeah.
And then really clocking that that wasn't there ever again, and like it was always very different. And then with Andy, like, the fact that her clothes bring in all the elements that you were talking about, but that it also always kind of looks like she could have done it.
Hmm.
Because that was a really important part of her character, and the fact that her family didn't have much money, and so like it needed to bring in all those elements, but be like, this is something she could do.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the wardrobe said a lot about these people.
Yeah. I just heard an interview with Molly Ringwald on Fresh Air where she talked about not liking the final dress.
Mm.
And I remember not liking it either, or I thought I didn't like it. And then I watched it this time and I'm like, it's not bad. Like it's really not. And she did it herself. So it has that sort of homemade quality to it. I thought actually it was a really good choice.
I think like in terms of personal aesthetic, when they showed shots of her just like from here up, it was gorgeous.
Right.
And then on the wider shot, it was like, okay, that's a lot. But
Yeah.
also it feels like a lot of things, it's like it feels like the 80s to me still. Like it's like somehow it was a dress with shoulder pads with no shoulders. It was just like big in places where, sometimes things were big.
Yeah, and it
Um
was too long though. Like they should have definitely because it cut her off. It was like T length, T skirt length, and it was which is not good on most people and not in this instance either. So I understand where she was coming from. And you're right, like the longer shots don't highlight the best part of it as much. Yeah, you're right. Like the top is the best part for sure. Yeah.
yeah. I think I mean I think part of it needs to work a bit in the not exactly silhouette, but at the end of the film, like when we're getting sort of those wider shots of her walking to Blaine, I think it does need to read that way because it wasn't like well lit shots. It needed to be sort of out by his car. Um, but also like it did need to be something she had made, and I can't imagine she would have made a lot of dresses like that.
Right.
So she would have been really like, and she was putting together like multiple dresses into this one thing. So it was a pretty complicated project. And yeah, I think like she probably shouldn't be like the most refined fashion designer yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that you brought that in because it really like those details say so much about these people.
Mm.
Um, Okay, I for number 8, I am going to look. I feel like people when they watch this film, they're like, "Oh, she should have been with Ducky. She should have been with like." Okay, we're gonna get that, but I also feel like for me, this did end correctly. So I really like that at the end, Ducky sees what's happening with Blaine and Andy, and
Mm.
he's like, "No, you need to go have a conversation with that boy. This is an incredibly romantic moment for me and you're ruining it." Like
Yeah, that's
I
really
lo-
cute.
I love that
Yeah,
he
it
takes
makes
that
us
step
like him
back.
and not be so skeeved. I was kind of skeeved out by Ducky a little bit. Like
He's a
before
lot.
he
I
was
think that was, it hurt Ducky to say that, but he also realized this was bigger than him.
yeah,
And
you realize he really loves her, like really loves her. He doesn't just want to be with her and kind of possess her. He loves her so much he sets her free.
he does. And I think and to be honest about it, like Blaine came here by himself. He's been sitting alone. Like he's not like the other guys. Like I said he was, but he is really not. It's my seal of approval. Yeah, I think he said all the things that he needed to say as a friend. And it hurt him,
Yeah.
but
Oh, Christy Swanson. He
yeah.
got, that was Christy Swanson at the
Was
end.
that Christy Swanson?
Yeah,
Oh
she's the
my goodness.
Duckette. She was the original what's her
Buffy the Vampire
Buffy.
Slayer. I mean, talk about a movie I used to be able to quote, recite for I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I
Oh
need to go
man, I've
back and
never
watch.
seen that movie. I just know that that's her.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Christy Swanson, Lou Perry, my goodness.
So he did okay.
Yeah, he's gonna be fine.
He may just
Um, yeah. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I like the choice. I like that he has some growth and that he's
yes.
like,
Yes.
I need I need to let this go. This is clearly something you two need to pursue. And I
Yeah,
thought that
that's
was
the word,
mature.
growth. He had some growth, which was yes, very nice. And I heard that there was some I heard they changed the ending. Like originally she was going to wind up with Ducky, and
Mm.
that's why but that's why they called Andrew McCarthy back in. This is I don't know where I guess I heard an interview with him. They called him back and he had to go do reshoots of the scene in the prom. Um, and he had cut his hair for some show that he was doing. So they had to put him in a wig. So if you watch it, and I did notice it this time, I'm like, oh yeah, that is a bad wig. Like he's like, the wig is so bad, it's like really puffy, and everyone was making fun of me. So you do notice it because I think they reshot it because the audiences were like, we don't want to wind up with Ducky.
Yeah, they definitely were testing this out. I think, I think it's interesting because I was reading a stat like 60+% of people were more interested in seeing her with Blaine at the end. And I think like you can make a case for or against both of those people. But
Yeah.
I like neither of them felt like a complete total package, but they both had things that I liked. And they
Mhm.
both certainly had moments that I disliked. I think like in terms of like plot development, they have to give Blaine something that's like pulls him apart from Andy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's so interesting that they reshot it and that they were. nimble enough, like when they did test. I guess that's why you test in front of an audience to make sure that when you release it, it's going to land a little better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it says a lot about people. Well, no, I don't know what it says about people that they
I don't know. I think people read into the future. I mean, I think she's just way beyond Ducky. Ducky is like, and like you said, he had growth at the end. So maybe the Ducky after he's with the Christy Swanson character would be a better choice for her. But at this point, he is a child and I mean, she takes care of her father
yeah.
in a way that I also found a little problematic. It's like, oh, you're kind
Yeah.
of mom and he's not responsible, and that's a lot. Um,
I think I would have found those scenes less problematic if they weren't so like, let's smile and hug it out feeling. Like it felt a little bit not real because of that. But I think it's all meant to show you like she's really had to grow up very, very
yeah,
fast.
yes. She's
She
way
just
more mature
she
than
doesn't really like you can kind of see even with Ducky, she doesn't really fit in with anybody exactly. Like she's just different from everybody she encounters at school uh, in her whole life, really. In
yeah.
fact, maybe she is closest to Iona, which is why they have um like a stronger connection and friendship.
Mhm.
But yeah, it can't be easy to be Andy going to school.
Easy, not easy to be Andy.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
okay, so are we on number
Let's
what?
do number 7. What do you want to bring in for that one?
Well, I loved her dog. I loved Andy.
Yes.
I just love that dog. I want that dog. I loved her. What the other thing I really loved, and it's a broad umbrella, is the production. Did we say production design? We didn't. I
Mm-mm.
loved the production design. I thought it was so great. I loved her pink princess phone. I loved her pink Carmen Gia. I loved the way Annie Potts's apartment was decorated because I was, as I said, alive at that time, and I had friends with apartments, older friends who had apartments, and it was so cool to go in and see like scarves on the lamp and like these kind of bohemian like everything kind of thrown around thrown together like artsy different eclectic stuff was so cool, and I thought they really captured that moment because I don't think people really do that in apartments now. Like there were it was and I love that her apartment was in Chinatown,
Hmm.
which that exterior is Chinatown downtown LA, which is still exactly the same. um I love that she lives in Chinatown. Like, I don't know if that's even a thing, but
Like over a restaurant.
yes, over a restaurant, right? But I don't know
And
if
her
that is.
doorbell was a gong, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they definitely like leaned into the whole Chinatown thing, but China it is an actual place. It's in downtown LA, and it looks exactly the same at the very beginning, at the very front of it. Um, so yeah, I really love that. I thought her room, Andy's room, was really great. The pink princess phone, like I said. Um, yeah, the production design was just great.
Yeah, so it sounds like for you, the world building elements of this really worked and they resonated.
Yeah, because they were really on point. They were really, it didn't feel like they felt lived in and authentic, as opposed to sometimes you feel like you're watching a set. It's a set, and they don't really, it's too fancy or it's too plain or they were just felt really lived in and vibrant. I thought they did a great job. Oh, and I will tell you who that person was because I did look it up. The production design was John W. Corso, and the set decorators were Jennifer Polito and Bruce Weintraub, who they dedicated the movie to at the end. He's one of the people. I guess he died. He also was the production or the set decorator for Prizzi's Honor, which is a movie that my dad produced, which I was like, hey. He also did Scarface. He did a lot of stuff.
Wow. I think it's worth noting for people as well who maybe some people may be seeing this who've seen your work before, but I think I first know your work from the show Felicity and your character, Megan, like when it comes to wardrobe, when it comes to set design, I think there was maybe the most attention to detail sometimes put into your character. So I
Yeah.
love that you're noticing that about this. You probably have
That is
totally
true.
different eyes looking at something like
Yes.
this.
It's a hard job, and when it's done well, it just really elevates everything. I mean, yeah, I do notice that stuff. I think if you don't notice it, it's even better. It's just such a care. It adds so much to a character, um, that it's really invaluable to do it when it's done right. It's great.
Mm. Well, let's talk about, okay, number six. I'm gonna try to keep it on the people. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about Blaine.
Mhm.
I know that they need to make conflict for his character, but for the first two-thirds of this movie, I like that Blaine actually meets situations head on. He's sort of not afraid. Like, this is sometimes you almost wonder, like, does he even know, like, what's happening? Like, is he observant or self-aware? But then he does give these little signals, like, when Andy breaks down crying and she's like, I don't want you to take me home. But he's just like, what? Like, I'm taking you home. Like, it's just he knows his friend Steph is not into this relationship at all. And he just sort of was like, I'm doing this anyway. And to the point where even though we see this rift between Andy and Blaine, we also see that he doesn't use that time to go back to Steph. Like if Blaine had tried to reintegrate with his old friends, I would look at Blaine a little differently. But because Blaine is just like, I don't belong with you people. Like he's clearly still pining
Not
for
wrong with it. I
Andy.
mean, he does go to the prom and hang out with Steph, and that's where he
He's
has the.
sitting alone.
Oh, but doesn't he talk to Steph and say like, "Oh, I just realized it's because you want her"?
Yeah,
No.
Steph comes over and tries to create that reintegration. And Blaine's like, no, hard no. And I just realized why you're being such a jerk.
Mhm.
So for me, it's actually really important that while Blaine, you know, he gets fatigued. He spends so much of this movie, he's like trying to introduce Andy to his friends. They're not having it. Andy tries to introduce Blaine to her friends. They're not having it. He keeps being willing to put himself out there and to keep being with Andy, but then he gets fatigued and he steps away from it all and he makes his excuses and he doesn't go to the dance with her, but he doesn't go to the dance with anyone.
Why do you think he goes to the dance?
I think what else is he gonna do? I think like he, as she goes to the dance too. I
I
mean, it's sort of like
I
I
feel
don't
like she
know.
went to the dance to hold her head high,
Yeah.
to say you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do, and you're not going to dictate. I'm going to have my life and do what I want to do because I want to do it. And I kind of felt that, but I wasn't really sure what Blaine was. I feel like I don't think the character of Blaine was. I don't think any of the characters, except for kind of Ducky, were really. I wanted a little more on all of them, just to be able.
Yeah, more fleshed out,
Yeah,
which I
flesh.
can totally see. I think with Blaine, I guess there's a couple schools of thought I could bring to this. Like one is he wanted to punish himself, and I don't know if I will land on that finally. Um, the other is like maybe he just kind of hoped he would run into Andy.
Right. I mean, that
Which
would be great to know
yeah, I think
because
I would prefer that angle of it knowing how the movie ends.
yeah, and like you
Um,
said, like I talked about, like when she says, "I don't want you to see where I live," and then we pull up at her house.
mhm,
I loved a moment of him going, "This, your house is fine.
yeah,
Why do you care about that?" Because it would make me know a little more. And so when she does wind up with him, it's like, well, of course,
yeah,
because he's a good person. And so, yeah, to even know, like if Steph were to come over and say, "Hey, man, why are you here by yourself?" He could say something like, "I'm hoping she comes," or I don't know.
I think the thing I needed spoken was not that because I felt like I had seen him making choices to do the stuff anyway, even though he was meeting
Right.
resistance. The thing that I think I needed a little more around was why exactly did he back out of the dance to begin with? Because that would have given me a little bit more like what was it that was finally his like I can't do this anymore. I need a
That would have been
break.
great. Yeah, that would have been great. Even if he said it something like that to Steph
Hmm.
at the dance.
Hmm.
Yeah. That you're right. Because then we wouldn't need an explanation. We would just know that like he's done.
like he just needs some time or he's done or whatever. But I think the fact that he kept making choices to do the hard thing after
Mhm.
that, like other than that very big choice, he kept making choices to
Yeah, like he
like be an
goes to the
individual.
club with her, and Ducky is such a jerk to him. But he doesn't let that deter him, and he's still pretty nice to Ducky. And uh, yeah, he shows himself to be a good guy, I think.
I think I like the idea, and I think I like this even more as an adult because of people that I know who don't have this backbone. Like,
Mm.
yes, he gets tired and he drops her and it's hard to watch, but
Mhm.
he spends a lot of this movie having backbone and being willing to stand up for what he thinks is what he wants and what he thinks is appropriate.
Yeah.
I like that he has that level.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wish he would do that the whole movie, but he gets back to that.
Yeah, but
Um,
he's still a teenager, so you got to like give him some grace in terms of sliding back and going, being unsure of how to behave or how to, these are
yeah.
friends, right? So sliding back into that and then realizing it's not for him. I like how he approaches her out of nowhere. Goes to the record store and like tries to buy or buys a Steve Lawrence record, which is really cute.
Yeah, that
Um,
like you walk into tracks and you give each other knowing looks direction. It's like, yeah, we know exactly what's supposed to be happening here.
yeah, yeah, I thought that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's number six, but what did you want to bring in for number five?
Yeah, let's find out here. I really liked Harry Dean Stanton in this, even though his character was um problematic in that, dude, suck it up. I don't know how he's making enough money to pay for stuff, but lying about a job, I'm like, is he drinking? Like he I worked with him on something once and he literally never stopped smoking, not for 1 second. So I thought it was interesting that his character smokes and also there's cigarettes on the table. So, right before they yelled action, he's got a cigarette that he's putting out. But I liked the scene where he cries about, is he crying about Andy's mom? It
Hmm.
got to me. I thought he did a really great job where he kind of breaks down and um again, his character, I wish there had been more development. I don't know if he actually did get a job. He was lying.
He
But where
was
was he going?
lying.
Where was he going when he wasn't when he was supposed to be going to work? What was he
How
doing?
was he? How did he get that
How
dress?
did he
Yeah.
how did he pay
Yeah.
for everything? But did he have a job at the end? Like, I wanted to believe that he had some growth and got a job, but he was so unspecific about what job am I going to get? There were some like questions, but at the core of it, I thought he did a really good job as an actor. Um,
We
so
got
yeah.
some really good stuff in a scene with Jack and Ducky, where in a way,
Oh
Jack was
yeah, when
almost
they're
a better
sitting
father to Ducky than
and
he was to Andy. Because, like, with Andy, she was sort of being the parent, and with Ducky, it was kind of like, if you have to make it happen like this, like he was encouraging, but he was also setting a little dose of reality. And we got some of his
right.
backstory from that. We learned, like, yeah, I loved a woman once, and she's like, "Oh, you mean Andy's mom? Oh, okay." Like, and so we
Yeah.
can start to put a little together there.
Hmm.
But I do think there was something really telling about the fact that he could go there with that character, but not with his own
Hmm.
daughter.
Well, his
Um,
own daughter, I mean, it is her mother. So maybe I could understand that, not wanting to put her in the middle of it in any way,
mhm.
even though she is right in the middle of it because she lives with him and he can't get his shit together.
Yeah.
But that makes it's a different, it's such a different dynamic. Your kid as opposed to just another person who's not got a background with you. Yeah, I thought that was a good scene. I forgot about that scene. I just watched it and I forgot about that scene.
It's so
Yeah.
funny though that you're saying like those weren't prop cigarettes. Like he was just
Oh, no, no, no.
yeah.
I mean, did not stop. Did not stop. I
Oh,
worked with him for 18 hours. I just had one scene, but it was a lot.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, brings us right back to the 80s that does in this movie anyway. My
Mm.
goodness. Okay, so Harry Dean Stanton comes in for number five. For number four, I'm gonna say Andy doesn't lie. Uh, that's what I'm bringing in here. She with everybody, kind of like she's really good at just saying what she thinks. It's a trait I value. It's a
Mhm.
trait that's nice to see in this character. Even there's a point I think with Blaine where he's like, "See, now I think you're starting to lie," and she's like, "Yep," and like she goes back to who she was. Like he knows her well enough to be like, "Stop it." Like you
Mhm.
don't do this, and then she's like, yeah, I don't. But even with like there's a particular bit of dialogue with Jack. um he's like, you think I missed the appointment on purpose? She's like, yes. He
Mhm.
says, that's what you think of me? She pauses a second and she says, yes. And I was like, well, okay, Andy,
Yeah.
like this is it. This is how, like, people don't have to guess where they stand with you, which is probably why she has like a lot of people who don't love her at school. All those girls who like talk about her behind her back because they don't want to talk to her face. Like,
Yeah, I mean that, but that's very typical. Teenagers are afraid of what they don't understand.
yeah.
But they're kind
And
of
who really could understand Andy? I mean, like, she's just not, she
well,
just,
she had
her
that
life
one
isn't like
friend.
anybody's.
She had the one friend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that actress died like not that long after. In fact, the movie's devoted to her too.
Oh,
Sorry, I just watched it. Yeah, she died not that long after that movie. They say she was murdered, but I actually did kind of a deep dive on that actress because I remember her from movies at that time, and I'm like, she died, and I started looking it up, and um, if you look it up under like movie trivia, it says she was murdered, but I think it was a drug overdose.
oh, I feel like there were a lot. I feel like I hate looking up what really happened to movie actors from the 80s because there are so many horror stories like this.
Mm.
When I was doing Inktober and I covered Poltergeist, I was like, I can't even look. Like there was
Oh
just like
God,
just
that movie
what
was
that cast was
cursed.
cursed.
Yeah.
But I also I've covered Can't Buy Me Love
Amanda.
for this series and Amanda Peterson. Yeah, like
Looking through too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, it just feels like more than now for some reason, but maybe that's just the movies I'm watching.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of shit going on right now.
Yeah, it's different maybe.
I think it's just human nature, and some humans are in front of a camera and have a lot of attention,
Yeah,
so their downward spirals are, everybody watches, and some
yeah.
most people don't have that. So
Mhm. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I like this character trait of Andy's. I think it helps move the plot along a bunch of times
yeah,
because she's just telling it like it is and she's not covering things up. And I relate to this aspect of her.
yeah. Why bother lying about, especially about stuff like when you're talking to your dad and he's like, "Oh, you didn't believe me?" She's like, "No, I didn't believe you."
Hmm.
I and same with Blaine to her. Like, why would you're not doing, I think it's great to be upfront.
I think especially with her dad, for me that was really important because there are these moments with his character where she's like, okay, you're getting up, right? Yeah. And then she leaves the room and he like goes back to bed. She comes back and she's like, dad, like that. It could be
Yeah.
without these lines like this, it could be really like nagging wife type energy. And that doesn't need to play for humor for me in this movie because we have to see how Andy is really impacted by all this. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
we get that
Yeah.
piece. But
Yeah.
okay, so that was number four. What did you want to bring in for
Okay.
number three?
Oh, I love that everyone smokes because again, it's such a throwback to that time. Nobody smokes anymore. Like, can you tell me, like, do people smoke? Like, anyone under 30 still smoke cigarettes?
I don't notice that happening very much. I guess I'm not out late night at clubs or anything, but I don't tend to notice that.
Yeah. That the no smoking campaign really worked.
Hmm.
Something that smokes, something that worked. Okay, we'll talk about characters. What characters did I really like? Um, I liked Andy's character. I liked that she was a grown up in a sea of children, it seemed. Um, yeah, she just had it on the she just had it going on in a way that she was very true to herself. The fact that she was willing to not dress like any one group, but to dress like herself. That's why I don't think ultimately she'll wind up with either of those guys.
Hmm.
But Blaine's a good placeholder, but I think she'll outgrow him because she's already outgrown him in every way. So I liked her. She was my favorite character, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who she would be the right match with as an adult. Because she is such an individual and she has to be so strong and confident in that
Mhm.
now, and it just puts her in a completely different position from her peers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, Andy, good character. So you're gonna have number one in a minute, but first I want to get to number two.
Thanks for warning.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a warning on this. So, first, for me, number two is number one. So, number two can only be this. Ducky dances to try a little tenderness by Otis Redding. That's it. That's if that's the only scene, if the whole movie got lost and we only got to keep one scene, that's the scene that I want. Ducky sliding in across the frame, and then he comes back and he's strutting. And they've really used this space. Look, I've got a bunch of dance movies on this list. Whether or not they were actually rom-coms is debatable, but I wanted movies like Center Stage and I wanted movies like Dirty Dancing and I wanted all these movies
Such
on
a good one.
here.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
you know, if I'm gonna get a little dance moment, like Jon Cryer just nailed this. And I love, whatever I assume that this was choreography. I assume he wasn't improvising this because of the way they used the space, the way the camera was ready for all
Yeah.
of these things that he did. They just really brought the whole. It was like he was like a light touching all these spots in tracks. And I liked seeing that whole space because they really worked hard to make that feel like a real shop
Yeah.
full of
And that might have
records.
been because I actually looked up because I was curious where they shot it. Like I know the exterior of tracks is the Third Street Promenade, which is
Mm.
there. They redid the outside, but the inside they might have shot someplace in Chicago, like an actual record store, because I was really curious about where they shot the stuff. So I may be wrong. Might have been they might have been just a set, but it really felt lived in.
Oh, I felt so lived in. And they didn't take shortcuts. I mean, they pointed that camera in almost every
Mhm.
direction except maybe up. But then, even then, we had some angles kind of looking on an upward angle at Ducky. So I think
Didn't they have the records on the ceiling?
they had it in that one part where they had their desk.
Oh, right.
But once you got into the main room, I don't know if that whole space was fleshed out, if it was an actual location that they were shooting at. But I would believe that they were on location in an
Mhm.
actual shop for this whole thing.
Mhm.
So I just between you know Jon Cryer had such interesting choreography to it also. Like it wasn't he clearly can dance, but
Mhm.
these also were not dance moves, you know? It was like this really interesting. He was just expressing himself and just like the fascination on particularly on Iona's face. She's like,
Mhm.
what is this? Um
Mhm.
and yeah, I just love that scene and for Ducky, but also for all these other reasons that aren't Ducky. But whenever I think, like when I was thinking about what movies I wanted to cover, I was like, yeah, the one where Ducky dances. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Um, Number one, does it have to be the best, the most important one?
doesn't
I
have to
think,
be.
okay, good, because yeah, I thought Jon Cryer did a great job.
Mhm.
Despite his character being a little much, a little unhinged and very immature, I thought he did a great job, like of just embodying that having the funny sides, having the he just really embodied it in a way that really fleshed it out. He was kind of like Ferris Bueller without the cool,
Mhm.
like the talking, I'm sorry, my voice, like the talking to himself and the doing all that. I was kind of in that moment where was he on the phone with her? And he's like, just do it, just do it, just tell her. And she's put him on hold. She's gone downstairs for a second.
Or I think he's at her place. And she's
Oh
gone
yeah, right,
downstairs
right,
and
right,
he's
right.
in
Yes,
her
at the
room.
intercom, or she can hear through the thing, but she doesn't really get what he's doing.
Hmm.
I thought that would have been interesting had she heard it. I mean, her behavior towards him is, I mean, how blind do you have to be that you're like putting your head on his shoulder and being way too familiar physically with this person that you have to know is in love with you.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought he did a really, really nice job, and especially at the end where he tells her, where he has his like revelation of like, I'm gonna let her go because I love her so much. I'm gonna let her do this thing that I know is better for her than I am.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought he did a great job. I mean, there's a reason that he has been so successful in
Yeah.
his career. I mean, 2.5 Men, that's like, yeah, really
Yeah.
great, and has continued to be successful.
He
So,
has.
yeah.
I think, that character, you really I understand Ducky. Like I think I've been in the Ducky position myself. And while it's too much, like empirically, he's doing too much. But also he is getting some signals from Andy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there's no question she's putting things out there that maybe in the light of a new day, if she knew that he loved her, maybe
yeah,
she wouldn't be doing all of those things. For her, he's just a friend and has been the whole time. But I do think that he's getting some mixed messages from her. And I I I get that. And I get that he's had hope with her at
yeah,
intervals that feel important to him. So, okay, like so then you see all this conflict in him and he's found ways to explain it away and
mhm,
she's let things go on this way for a long time and so it's become their
yeah,
ritual. Um but yeah, he does a really good job of like giving us a sympathy for him even though you could set this as a horror film and make it like like
yeah.
yeah, like this is definitely could go the other
A
way.
horror film. You should have put it on your, what is it? October, what
Yeah, Inktober, this and Sleepless in Seattle, when cut the right way,
Right.
it's like, ooh, is it a rom-com or is this a thriller? Um,
Oh my God.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah, Ducky's a good character. Jon Cryer did
Ducky's
him
a
well.
great character. I still wouldn't put her with Ducky. I think Blaine is the right choice. I think had I seen the movie with the cut where Ducky is the one she chose, I would have been like, "Hmm." She's again, I feel like she would have had the same relationship with Ducky as she had with her dad, which is like the
Mm,
caretaker, the grown up, and who wants that? I didn't want that for Andy.
yeah. Okay, totally fair. I mean, this is our top 10 list. This is 10
Yeah.
things that we found interesting or that we love about Pretty in Pink. And now it's time for everybody who's watching this, share the things that you love about this film or that strike you from this film. Or like, where do you stand? Blaine, Ducky, where does it all? Neither, both? I don't know. So jump into the comments, let us know. And before we close this out, Mandy, I just wanted to give you a chance. Is there anything that you wanted to mention or plug that maybe you've done before that's coming up?
No, I don't think so. There's stuff coming up, but I'll plug it when it's in the real actual thing, when it's really done and like ready to come. Otherwise, because you never know.
You never know with
Stuff gets
timelines around here.
said, stuff gets thrown around, and then it doesn't happen, or it happens, but it's not worth talking about.
I mean, what a time for your industry, really. I think it was always like that, and now who knows? Who
It's a weird
knows?
time. It's a weird world.
But okay, so next time we are going to be on day 27 and we are going to watch The Cutting Edge from 1992, which pound for pound might be the movie I have seen the most times in my life, but most of that was before the age of 20. Um,
How do you feel about it after the age of 20?
I still really enjoy it. I really like it. started watching other movies, and like Love Rosie became a new favorite rom-com, and it's a mess, but it's always a treasure to go back to this film from 1992 with Maura Kelly and DB Sweeney. And actually, I'm going to be joined to cover that one by guest Emily Gibson, who's a co-founder of the ATX TV Festival based in Austin.
Yeah, I
So,
met her because I did that.
ooh, yeah. So Emily is also a huge fan from childhood for The Cutting Edge, and so we got to like relive all of our nostalgia for that movie together, and hopefully with all of you as well. So be sure to join us for that movie. And in the meantime, everybody who's watching, happy Rom-Com Month. Get love, get donuts. Bye.
Bye.